Welcome to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. I am Juliette Hahn. I'm here with my co-host, Brent Sopel, and we are here to change the narrative. We want to educate, but we also want you guys to understand what it is like to be dyslexic and how things can change. So join us every week for Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. Welcome back to Word Blindness. I'm Juliette Hahn here with my co-host Brent Sopel. How are you?
Happy Monday.
It is a Monday. So, I feel like every time we start, we always are giggling and then we get into like some deep stuff. But I think it's hilarious that we're always giggling because we always start talking and one of us usually pauses the other and is like, just start recording, like stop. We're going to get some good stuff here. So that's what happened here. So I'm going to start. Last week's episode, which is number 28, my microphone wasn't working. And we had some huge expectations because we just hired a agency, actually Visual Arts Lab, Alex and Octave. Octave's episode went out. If this episode is going out this week, his went out Tuesday. So this will be on the heels of that. So we had all of this really great excitement behind it because they're really going to help us with word blindness and some creative stuff. So I had all this expectations. And then when I listened, he's like, okay, it's ready. And I listened and I was like, no, I sound like shit. And then I realized my mic wasn't on. And then I realized that I was really pissed. And then I couldn't let it go. And I was driving and I was listening. I was like, is it my car? And then I couldn't listen. And we had such good content because it was really about flipping the B's and D's and how that really had come into our, like so many people just had recently just said, oh, I thought dyslexia was just about flipping your B's and D's. And you and I were like, okay, no, it's not. Like we obviously need to really put something behind that because we get that all the time. And, we want to create this awareness and this ad campaign. And so I had so much expectations behind that episode. And then my mic didn't work and it like tweaked my ears because I am really sensitive to sound and I'm really like a podcast snob now because I've been doing it as long as I've been doing. And then I got so pissed and I was driving and I couldn't let it go. And I typically can let things go. I am not one that is like hard on myself. I will say that I'm really not one that like dwells and is hard on myself. But because the expectations were there, I had a hard time.
Yeah, expectations. That's a great word. And you put those expectations on yourself, which is great. You have different expectations that you see other people see on you or want out of you.
I never thought about that.
Right. So again, it's controlling what you can control. Did you want your mic not to be on? No.
Well, I could have controlled
definitely,
that.
Definitely not.
Annoyed me. No.
Or, it's, I'm a perfectionist. There's no such thing as perfect.
I love what you just said with the expectations because I am not someone that's like, I don't want to let people down. I don't think I do that, but there's definitely something that I do that. Like, that's just from, if I say this is what we're going to do, I want to be able to do it to the best that I can do. And I don't like half-assing. Like that is something that I get really tweaked when someone says they're going to do something and then they really don't finish the job. Like that's something that really angers me, which is going to be really interesting as we get into what we're talking about today, because I am aware of that. And I know this is actually so interesting. And I'm clicking, which I have to stop because then I said to you, oh my God, I tell everyone to put something in their hand and click. And all I fucking hear is the clicking in my 9 microphone. And then I got even more pissed. So I got to get those things out of my way.
Tell everybody why you talk about you have something in your hands.
Yes. And I did this way back when in the beginning of our, when we first started word blindness. And it's something that I have taught my clients forever. When you have something in your hand, personally for me, it basically settles my brain and it focuses me and it helps me not twitch, fidget. I don't twitch. Maybe I do twitch, but it helps me not fidget. So, it's something that I'm really conscious of, but I got really good at since I've been, now I've been podcasting since 2019. So all of these different things that I was like, oh, I need something in my hands, or I'll tap the desk. Right. And that's what kind of had me talk about this in word blindness, because you were tapping the desk or doing something. And I remember afterwards, I was like, you might want to put something in your hands, because you also, doing all these things. I do talk with my hands, but if you have a microphone, you then hit the microphone, and that's just like, again, sensitivity to sound. I like to have my hands down and not try to use them as much, especially in the beginning when I first started, because you don't know your space. And so you're hitting the microphone all the time. Now I'm very aware of it. So that's where the clicking came from, but I cannot do that anymore because all I heard was fucking clicking.
Yeah, but you're right on that. But that's part of your ADHD. Fidgeting, having something in your, so that's why I wanted, just to touch upon that. That's that ADHD where you have something in your hand now that allows you to focus on what's being said or what you're saying.
So that is part of my ADD, but that's also being very self-aware. And those are the things that we talk about all the time. Being self-aware is how you then grow as a human, and then you can share with other people. So that's kind of what we decided, defense mechanisms. And we've talked about that in the past, but we really haven't broken it down. And so I see your smile. You jump in.
No, this is a topic that comes up probably with just about every single person that I speak to.
Right.
As we dive into this, you sent me that article this morning. I'm like, oh, this is appetizing for a Monday morning. So let's open up that article and start breaking this thing down.
All right. So again, if you guys have been following word blindness for a long time, you will recall there was one time where I read through things. You got to bear with me. I'm going to do this again, but these are bigger terms that I'm not as comfortable with. So I didn't practice as much. So this could be interesting.
I'm going to click on it too.
Yeah, please. So we can have second eyes. But so basically for defense mechanisms are unconscious strategies whereby people protect themselves from anxious thoughts or feelings. So I want you guys to think about that again. I'm going to read it again. Defense mechanisms are unconscious strategies whereby people protect themselves from anxious thoughts or feelings. And this next little piece I thought was interesting, because defense mechanisms are always not bad. And it says, that's what this says. Defense mechanisms aren't inherently bad. They can allow people to navigate painful experiences or channel their energy more productively. They become problematic, however, when applied too frequently or for too long. That's the problem. And we're going off of Psychology Today. This came from Freud. This is like back in the day. So this is like, again, has been around forever.
Friedrich, was it Friedrich and Freud? Is that who?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Sigmund Freud.
Sigmund. There. So I couldn't disagree more with that statement.
Oh, well, because they said they don't practice it the same way. So, go, please. I love it.
How the last point that you'd talked about where you can use it, to being productive. Couldn't disagree any more than that. Probably 1,100%. That's called a stuff-a-thon.
Which we will be doing more of that. So don't forget that word.
Yeah, that's the next step. What I mean by that is not addressing what happened. Now, that's your trauma. So it's saying it doesn't talk. You got to address all trauma. You got to clean out your closets, as you hear. You talk about all the time. To me, that word, what they just talk about there, they don't talk about addressing it and be able to use it and move forward, because it says in there, if it's done too frequently. So you're not cleaning out your closets. You're using that to fuel your fire, anger, whatever that is. but at some point in time, you're going to explode.
Right. So and the way I took it is that sometimes if you have a defense mechanism and you know about it, you can use it as something productive. But again, that's where you bring the real part, and I sometimes the Pollyanna positive part.
No, I agree with you completely. I think the wording, the way they said it there, using it too frequently tells me that you're not okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. 100%.
So I agree with you. You talk about it all the time, the fuck you attitude. I'm going to make it, teacher. You hear a lot, why? What fueled your fire? A coach said I'd never make it, or a teacher. So that's using that. Great. But when we're talking about defense mechanisms, as we'll dive in here, it's, from your trauma, is that addiction, or is that death or divorce, or whatever it is. The stuff-a-thon is what I got from that. Now, if those words were taken out at the end, it might, to me, would process it differently.
No, totally. And I think what you said is, and again, what we're going to do today, which I threw out there to you and I said, this could be fun or it could be a real shit show, but we're going to read some of these and then you're going to say, like, you're going to be like, yeah, you do that. And I might say, no, I don't. So we're going to kind of analyze each other because there's a couple of things, every time we talk, I mean, and again, I'm going to get into it, but one of the things that you are king on it, and people that are regular listeners on this might be like, oh my God, he is. You can change the subject when you do not want to talk something and you change it where you bring it to the other person, like ask them something they want. However, I said to you when I was listening back, because that's what we talked about in last episode, listening back to the episodes, and I have gotten up to 5. And one of the things, I think it was in number 2, I ask you a question and you totally divert. Now I remember very clearly being like, he's not answering that. Okay. I just asked it. Now he needs to answer it or we're going to sound really attention deficit. Like, oh, here they go off in tangents. And I'm very cautious. I shouldn't say cautious. I'm very aware of that. And that's one of the reasons why our podcast is so good, because we do go back. Like, we don't ask questions and then just go off. It's not like this attention deficit, like shit show, which it could be, right? But I've gotten very good at being like, oh no. Let me hold on to that, because some questions can go down beautiful different paths and bring up something. But so
no, that's just, you want to be right. You just say, I asked you a question, you're going to answer it. Do as you're told.
No, you might think that, but no. And it was hilarious because we had talked about all of this. And when I was listening back, I was dying laughing. And I was like, oh, God, I really hope that I go back and make him answer that question, because I don't think I did, but then I did. And it was like a good 15 minutes. We talk about something else. And then I say, I asked you a question. I kind of need you to answer it because we asked it and the listeners are going to be waiting. So I think when you sit back, I like when you listen and then you're also like, fuck you. But so that was really interesting. But so as we've gotten to know each other, you totally know when I also am doing, a defense mechanism. So we're going to dive into, there's 10. And again, this is this article, right? We're not saying we're the experts. We are having a conversation. We're going off this Psychology Today. It seems like it's got some good information. So this is what we're doing. I didn't do like, let me look at 50 different articles and like, this is the best one. I Googled it. This popped up and I was like, oh, this is an interesting conversation. So anyone out there that is a psychologist that might not agree with us, that's fine. You can tell us. We're okay with that, but we're going off of this. Right? Okay. So number 1 is protection. Okay. Now, the one thing about this article is they use very large words, and I did not practice.
Way too big for me.
And as I'm looking at this paragraph, I'm starting to sweat and get a little like, how can I put this in my own words? Okay. Because the first word I have to think about, attributing. I think that's what it says. Protection. Attributing one's unacceptable feelings or desires to someone else. For example, if a bully consistently ridicules a peer about insecurities, the bully might be projecting his own struggle with self-esteem onto the other person. I know you have a lot to say about that.
Well, that's the statement that I make every day. there's not such thing as a class clown or a bully.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's a reason, and my daughters love that movie, Mean Girls. Usually the leader of a pack, kind of like that, is in the most pain.
Mm-hmm.
And projecting, projection's not the right word. I'll take this in a bigger picture. Everybody talks about COVID, everything, lockdown, how the world's way more crazier today than it ever been. And mental health's a big thing. I think the kids are in the worst spot they've ever been because the adults are. And it's being dropped down onto the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what that means. They don't know how to feel. And I talked to a family yesterday, and they said their kid used to be the sweetest kid ever. Now he's anger, doesn't listen, just nothing but negative, because that's pain. That's controlling him. And, and so is when somebody's mean, somebody's rude, it's usually controlled by pain.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I always used to say to my kids, and I remember one time when they were little, I said, if you see someone that's like being mean to someone else, that person that's being mean is usually there's something wrong. They're sad. Something's wrong. Yeah. So my kids who are very empathetic, I remember my middle son going, or no, it might have been Penelope being like, okay, but I'm trying to be nice to them. And then they're mean to me. I don't want to be like them to be then mean to me. But you said, if someone's picking on someone else, it's usually because they're sad. But then they're mean to me, Mom. So what do I do? And I was like, oh, okay, that's right. That's a good point. I see you're trying to help that person feel good about themselves. You're a really great kid, or whatever she was doing. And then she's like, well, then they were mean to me and that didn't feel good. And so it was a really interesting conversation because I've always said that. That was one of the things, again, in the beginning of the podcast, I said to you, I've been saying that for years. We need to get to the bottom of whoever you think is a class clown and a bully. There's something behind it, whether it's family life, whether it's something else, or it's they are having trouble learning. I've been saying that for decades. So when you said that, I was like, wait a second. Okay. Oh my God. I've been saying that too. That was one of the things that we connected on.
And that, again, leads you back to some of the statements. It's relatability. We talk about, everything. I'm going to say, all encompassing mental health is everything that we're talking about: dyslexia, dysgraphia, ADHD. It's all, you can't see it. So, we got the anti-bullying campaign and this and that. And when you don't understand something, you're never going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're right. Back to, that kid, I was trying to be nice to him and they're mean back. Absolutely. They're going to be, because you didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And that's the understanding.
They're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Right. And so I was like, oh, wait, okay, I'm giving you too much. And they're taking it literally because they're kind kids that are like, oh, that person's sad. I want to make them not sad. But there was no understanding underneath it.
Yeah. And that's everything. You got to understand where, how many times you got to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You don't judge a book by cover, right? All these little one-liners, these cliches for a reason. And to that point, there's not enough understanding in the world today.
Mm-hmm.
People judge, don't listen. It's a lot of people that think they're the smartest people in the room. And that's obviously the biggest problem.
A lot of egos.
What's that saying? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And you open it with, we're not the experts and we're just taking out of this. And there's other, psychologists and things out there. But I say this every day. if you haven't lived these traumas that we refer to, you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the best psychosis doctor. You've never had one. What are you talking about? Oh, I'm the best ADHD doctor. You don't have ADHD. The hell are you talking about? You got no understanding. And that was touched upon yesterday when I talked to a family. Is the kid's struggling, self-esteem, dysgraphia, OCD, other things. And they're like, and the mom says, I don't have ADHD. Help me. When do your brain shut off? I'm like, never.
Ever.
But they're trying to figure out, Ritalin, Vyvanse, if medication is going to work. I said, we need to address the self-esteem. Somebody's so angry and bottled up. A pill's not going to unbottle that.
Right. It's a Band-Aid.
Yeah. And they're like, I never thought about that way. So, I should take them off that. Let's address one problem and address the problem, not Band-Aid it.
Yeah.
That was a long blabber of my point.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm going to have you fix your thing. You're like a little person. So that is, but again, and we talked about all the time. So someone that's struggling in school, it doesn't mean that they're going to be the bully or they're going to be the class clown. That everyone comes out with different things. Like we talked about a different, there's so many different ways, but there's the awareness and then the help. So that, like, protection is one. If you're seeing some of this and you're in school, it's like, okay, there's something a little bit underlining. Let's talk about this. I'm going to go on to the next one because I don't think either of us do this projection.
No, I think we do a good job to try and put ourselves in the other person's individual shoes.
Yeah. And maybe at some point in our lives, we did do that. Because here's the thing. I know you did. I know.
I did. I was a bully. I bullied kids.
I know you did.
I'm not going to hide by it. And that's why I put myself in their shoes.
Yeah. And so, no, I knew that. And that's the thing. So like one of the things is when you're self-aware of it, this is when the healing and all, so you could have defense mechanisms that you had as a kid that you don't have anymore because you're aware of it. We talked about a couple different scenarios, which we'll get into, which is, I always use the word fun and then I'm like, well, I guess it's really not fun, but interesting.
So depends on definition of fun.
Right. Yeah. My definition of fun these days is way different than it used to be. I'll tell you that. Denial. So refusing to recognize or acknowledge real facts or experiences that would lead to anxiety. For instance, someone with substance use disorder might not be able to clearly see the problem.
There's a lot of times they see the problem, but the pain's too big. When I'm working with people trying to recover, from drugs, get sober, it sucks having to feel these feelings. That's why we do drugs. That's why people drink. You hear this, coming home from work, have a couple drinks, right? Get away from those feelings. That's, they talk about drugs and alcohol abuse being hereditary. It's trauma to me. And that's to what they just said, is that they may not recognize what it is. A lot of times they recognize it so much that
right. They're using, right, because they can't deal with their trauma. Denial. So again, there might be times in our lives, I think both of us could say, yes, there was definitely times in life I numbed. And so there was denial.
Drugs and alcohol are so good. I get away from myself. It was,
now you can't. So repression. blocking difficult thoughts from entering into consciousness, such as trauma survivors shutting out tragic experiences. Now, I want to say something, because when I read that, someone can think a tragic experience, like they go to the most tragic thing they can think of. And there's different levels of tragic experiences. So this is why we talk about dyslexia, not just flipping your B's and D's. It's standing in class, having to read, having your teacher ask you if you're retarded in front of the whole class. That is trauma. That is, I can still go. That is horrific embarrassment. That's shame. There's so many different things to that. All the things that you went through, kids laughing at you as you're reading out loud, teachers not supporting you and helping you, being like, okay, he's not reading really well, and just pushing you through. These are traumas. Yes, there's other traumas, and there's deeper traumas that we divorce. There's so many different things that someone might say, well, I don't really have trauma, but there's experiences that are negative experiences are trauma. So I'm going to let you.
Yeah. Every trauma is massive trauma. It's the most massive trauma because it's your own.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, getting laughed at in front of the class, or, being called retarded. You can look at somebody, that's not a big deal. And that's what we talk about here all the time. But to you, that's the worst trauma ever. To the next person,
it's terrible.
And whatever that trauma is, the worst. It's the worst trauma because it's theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So to you, to each individual, your own trauma is the darkest, deepest trauma there is. But there's trauma.
Yeah. And going through, and we're not going to share what you're doing, but you've been going back and kind of thinking about stuff from your childhood in school. And you're like, I really don't remember. Now, we've talked about this because Danny Fetty, who's been on, she's like, she laughs at me. She's like, it's so interesting. You remember some things. I do remember very significant things, but I think I shared with you, I had pulled out a yearbook and I might have even talked about this on the last episode, because I was going to look at something for, writing for senior, like superlative. And I went and was reading. I was like, oh, I love this. This is fun. Going back and reading, what people said. And everyone kept bringing up this one teacher. Like, oh, I can't believe you told her off. And I was like, wait, I told someone off in 10th grade. I don't remember that. I remember telling someone off in 9th grade, but like, who was I telling off in 10th grade? And the fact that more people, and I looked at the person's name, had no idea. I looked up her picture. I don't know why. And I literally got like lightheaded. It was a math teacher that talked to me like I was a special slow person. And she was new. She was very young, and she did not know how to teach. And it is, so crazy. So I was talking to my mom. I hadn't shared this with you. I was talking to my mom, and my mom said, Mom was like, why are you telling teachers off all the time? Like, I remember Mrs. Miller, because her calling me retarded. And she's like, no, but you spoke your mind. She's like, you were not one that like, you spoke your mind. She's like, I'll never forget a teacher in 7th grade who you actually like hurt her feelings so badly. And she went to called my mom crying because she was trying to teach the class. This was math. I was in a class with all the boys. And she was trying to teach something, and she was getting frustrated. And because I could read people so well, I could tell she was getting frustrated. And I said to her, I'm sorry that you're getting frustrated. You're teaching the dumb class. I don't know why you're getting frustrated. We're just as frustrated. And she was like, oh my God, and went like home and was really affected by it. Cause she was like, I can't believe that. First of all, this child's like, you're teaching the dumb kids. You're frustrated. How do you think we feel? And like, you're getting annoyed because we're not getting it. Figure it out, lady. Like, stop being frustrated. Like, I basically called her out on her shit. And my mom said, I'll never forget. She called me hysterical crying. And she had like kids. I think they're kids the same age as us. Like my sister was friends with, like her daughter or something. Yeah. So like, it was like a family friend too. And she's like, I just feel so bad that Juliet even feels that way. And it was like 7th or 8th grade. So at those times, and the whole reason why I'm bringing that up is because that's trauma. there again, I didn't remember that. I didn't remember this teacher. And when I saw the teacher, I was like, oh my God, I got like almost like I was like, oh, holy shit. Like I started sweating because the way she spoke to me. And that's why all of those little experiences when you struggle in school and people are like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it fucking is.
Your brain is the most powerful, strongest part of your body. There's a reason why, what was it, Thomas Train? I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can.
Yeah.
When I speak in front of high schools or schools, I always do a drill. And it's, you stand there with your feet shoulder width apart. You put your arms out wide, and you turn. And you don't move your feet. You just kind of twist your body and as far as you can go. You mark that point, just, say that you turn to, you spin whatever, so 12 o'clock. You go back. I tell them to close their eyes, put their arms out, straight out. I always tell them I'm not going to punch them because they never. But I said, visualize yourself turning 2 feet further. And I keep saying that. You're going to turn 2 feet further. You're going to visualize yourself, turning 2 feet further. Now, if there's a door that's 2 feet further than where I said, you're going to spin and point to that door. I'll pick a point. And every single time they do. And there's research, I think it's cancer research, that positive thought process, more negative, glass half full, glass half. So your brain is that powerful. Now we talk about why I don't remember, why Dan doesn't remember a lot of their past, because our brains are so powerful that it's protecting us from things that where we didn't want to see, we don't want to see, or we weren't able to see. And that's where the therapy and going back and cleaning out the closets.
Right.
You see that teacher's picture and it brought you right back.
Oh,
that closet was
terrible. Oh, and I couldn't stand her. It actually then got angry. And then I was like, yeah, it was, So
that's that mindset. That's that positive. Again, the brain is that powerful. And the other day was tough for me because, the black hole, it wasn't the feelings that I couldn't see anything.
Yeah. And you've done so much work. I mean, and that's the thing. That's, it's, it brings me to this next one, which is regression, reverting to behaviors or emotions of an early developmental stage. So think of kids, right? Parents will be like, why are they doing this? What's going on? Ask questions, talk, right? Because if your kid is doing something like that, and I always then bring it to kind of when you're with your whole family and there's you have a lot of siblings or a lot of kids, and you all everyone kind of reverts back to that, who that kid was. I was the funny one, right? So I'm always constantly making him laugh. I remember there was times going back to family reunions and uncles would be like, come on, make us laugh. And I'd be like, I don't want to fucking make you laugh. I'm not a clown anymore, but it is you go back to the things that you were, as you were growing up. If things are, again, you haven't worked through things. I don't do that anymore when I get together with family stuff. But to every once in a while, if there's heated stuff, I will try to make everyone laugh. And it's stop making us laugh. We're having a discussion. I'm sorry. Right. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. We all do that.
Your defense mechanism.
Oh, 100%. Because I'm
so again, that's awareness, that's awareness for you. That's, you made a point just before we started this that, I've done a lot of work. Work never stops.
Never.
Obviously I'm 47. Look at everything I've got. I'm not going to fix it in 7 sessions. So you hear it all the time. Well, I don't want to go to therapy forever. Every single one of us in this world should. Life's a fucking bitch. 47, look at the things that have gone on. there's not enough belts in this world. Like I couldn't put on a conveyor belt and it'd never go away, because how many instances, how many people you talk to work, like just think what happens in a normal day. How many things come up? So work should never end. And you should be proud of that and not think of it the other way.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about, okay.
That's my first point. I didn't even get to that other point. I could blab on this topic all day long.
No, I know. But the thing is, but that's also why us doing this podcast has also been funny. I'm going to use funny again. Haha. It's hilarious.
But you have to laugh at yourself.
Yeah. But no, I'm saying like we are continuing doing work, even though we've also done our work. And it's like all of a sudden you realize you're in a situation and you're like, oh, wow, I'm actually doing even more work. And it's really cool. I mean, it's a really cool thing to be able to do work and see yourself grow and see how then you're impacting other people. I mean, that's the thing that's really, really cool and amazing, because it's like we've done like our work. We've done like pockets where we're helping, right? And it's like, okay, I'm helping this and that. And then all of a sudden you see, okay, I'm doing extra work, not even on purpose. And then look at the impact that it's happening to more and more people. I mean, and just people reaching out to us after the podcast, right? Oh my God, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. The reviews that we are having, just thank you. And it's like, oh yeah, you're welcome. Like it feels really great because I feel really good too. I just got, just worked through some stuff. And it's, it doesn't always have to be this difficult thing. Sometimes you can do work when you don't even realize you're doing it. You just have to make yourself stay open and curious. This is where I get like curious and like, not just shut yourself off.
And that's the biggest thing, in AA, you believe it or not, whatever, they talk about service. Helping other people. And when you're helping somebody else, they're helping you more. And anytime you can talk about your trauma is a good thing. Now, the hard part is, when I work with people, they're like, oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm not working, or it's not a chapter book. Okay, like you're on chapter 3 or you're on chapter 4 or chapter 5. It doesn't lay out that way. So that's the hard part to, okay, look at, we're almost at the bottom of the page. No, so it doesn't work out there. There's no roadmap. So I'm like, are you in a better place today than you were a month ago? Or what? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, you're doing work then.
Yeah.
And it's also not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy to talk about it, right? And
No.
It's not easy to talk about it, but you have to talk about it no matter. And, we talk about writing it down or, voice recording it. It has to come out of you somehow.
Right. And no, you didn't interrupt me. I was interrupting you, because the thing is, and there's cycles. Like that's the thing that I think people also sometimes think. And that's when you're saying like, there's always needs to be work that you're doing. Like there's periods of our lives that I can look back and I was like, oh wow, I was in a really great stage in that life. And then maybe X, Y, and Z happened. And then it was like, okay, now I got to do. And that's just life. That's like, you can't, as you said, there's no white picket fences and all that stuff. There's stuff happening. There's relationships, there's kids, there's, parents. I mean, as you get older, the more things happen. So as long as you are okay with who you are, going back to what you say all the time, you like and love who you are, you're going to be able to get through it. It all comes back to that self-esteem. That's the reason why we're doing this from the beginning, is to get that kid sitting in that chair where they're like okay with themselves. Because then when the trauma happens, because it's going to happen throughout their lives, shit's going to happen, they can actually handle it better than going down the dark path. Yes, will they maybe go down a little bit of a dark path, but can they get out and adjust a little bit better because they have that love and knowledge and understanding of who they are at an earlier age? Oh, I like that. I just said that.
Well done. Well done.
Right? I really like that.
Relatability, information, understanding. Obviously I repeat myself with, some of these taglines. And you watch sports, they're like, oh, that's just a cliche answer for a reason.
Right.
Right. It's for a reason. And you have trauma. Look at 3-year-old, 4-year-old. There's trauma there. But the two most important days of your life, the day you're born and the day you fall in love with yourself.
I love that.
Some people never do.
No, you're right.
And that's, I don't mean, before I jump in, relationships. If you can't fully love yourself, how do you expect another woman to love me, or another man to love, whatever, who you are? It doesn't matter who it is. But if you can't love yourself, how can you expect somebody to love you? And what comes with that is understanding. Mm-hmm. Talking to somebody who's non-diagnosed dyslexia. So we do some crazy things. I'm just using your husband and wife, and then the husband's just like, she's like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, what is that? I told you to do this, this, and this. And you're not doing it. Well, what's it end up? In divorce. Well, if there was some understanding, mm-hmm. maybe it wouldn't end up in a divorce.
Yep. Very true. So now I'm going to go to the next one, because I do want to get through the 10, because we said 10, and now
come on. This is going to be like a 7-part series.
Well, I was going to say, maybe we could do half of it and then do the other half, because but really what you said is so true. And that is so many relationships where people grow and there's not understanding of each other. You don't grow together. We've talked about, I've been married 20 years. Most of it has been fantastic. Has there been hard times? Yeah. But one of the things that we do is we talk about it. Like, okay, what's going on here? What's going on here? Is it always comfortable? Is it always great? No. But if we can understand where the other person's coming from and respect where they're coming from, and then they can respect and understand where you're coming from, it just makes it, you can still be pissed off of each other, but it makes it like, okay, I understand now. I'm sorry that I reacted to you that way. We just had, the situation this weekend. I told you, like, if I didn't understand where you're coming from, I thought you were just being a dick. He's like, well, I wasn't being a dick. I thought you were just being like, pushy or and whatever.
What's that book? Women are from Mars and guys are from Venus or whatever it is. So we're two different creatures. So if you don't understand yourself, how are you supposed to tell your significant other how you feel?
Yeah.
And this is probably the most portion of misunderstood comes in the world. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're not thinking that. I remember, before I got divorced or big fights. You're thinking this. I wish I was that smart. I talk to my daughters. I grab my cell phone. I'm like, guys, we stay in this little box. But our brains are so different. So if you don't have understanding and love and know who you are, so when your spouse, your significant other says, hey, I'm feeling this, you have the ability to process it. Yes, it's going to sound absolutely crazy. Yes, if it's an opposite sex, it's going to sound crazy. Because that's how differently we are wired. Testosterone and estrogen come into play here. But if you don't know who you are, and that's why you remember I said 95% of relationships are fake. I wish I had a picture of face had posted right here.
Whose head?
Your face. When I said that, 95% of relationships are fake. You're like, no, they're not.
Well, when you say, if you bring it up like that, where people don't know each other, and as you grow and you don't grow with each other, and it's,
And then again, Dan, your husband, not dyslexic, not ADHD. So now you've added extra things on top of it. Let's just, straight across, men and women are different. So right. Try to communicate. What do women say? 30,000 words a day, and guys are 10,000. So just that, we're different. Now add ADHD. That's another one. Dyslexia. So now you're talking 72 different languages to him, and without understanding yourself, how do you make it make sense to him?
Yeah. Totally. I mean, and that's one of the things I have to say. We are very good at communicating it because, and when we talked to the four of us got on the call, I mean, that's one of the things he said, the things that I actually fell in love with her. Now I realize is attention deficit and dyslexia. That it wasn't, it's that. And I'm like, oh, okay, funny. But it's a very, and we've also talked about, because Dan and I are very different. I mean, I don't want to say opposites, but we're very different, and it works because we respect each other, and actually we bring the best out of each other. Like, so like if I'm off, like, oh my God, let's do this and this and this, I mean, we would be living in, you'd be like, okay, let's think about this. But instead of ever being like, that's dumb and crazy, he would maybe bring something else up, like, well, what about this? Oh my God, I love it. Right. And then I would be like, oh, that's great. Instead of making me feel shitty about what my thoughts are. And I'm the same as him. Like, I brought him out of his comfort zone. He could be very comfortable. Like, I don't really need to venture over there. I'm like, oh, we're venturing. Like, we are venturing. We're going over here. So
that call, you bring up this listeners to that call because there's four of us, three dyslexics and a non-dyslexic, her husband. And let me tell you, the three of us are dancing and head spin, and he's sitting there perfectly like this.
We were doing all
touching a phone, not moving, just perfectly gentleman-like. I'm like, and there's the three of us spinning in our chair, and we're up here, and we're texting, we're on the phone here. So yeah, it was. I wish and there was a 10-second clip that we had of the four of us.
Well, because I was laughing because I could tell all of us were doing multiple things when he was talking, but we could hear him. Like we were all on the same page, but it was, he said, he goes, it was really actually funny because he is very introspective. Like he's very observant. He's an observer. That's like, my husband is an observer, kind of laid back. And when I say that, like in his work world, people are like, he is not laid back. I'm like, no, when he's in business, he's business, but he is more of a laid back observer, more of a quiet guy. And so he observes, he's like, I could see all three of your squirrels like going.
But he said, nice and polite, just, back straight, just, corporate. And the three of us are non-corporate, we go, oh, this car over there and this over here.
It was funny, but he's so good at like being able not to get distracted by it. And he can, obviously, but not everyone can do that. Right. So like that is something that is one of his strengths, that he can be like, okay, I can put myself and still be able to handle it. Cause there was a lot of movement. There was a lot going on.
He's understanding,
yeah.
And this comes, somebody, as he, in reference there, he's like, he didn't know the things that he fell in love with was the dyslexic traits, right? But if you don't understand yourself, how can he understand you?
Totally. Yeah.
And that's where a lot of problems and pain comes from, is people are trying to say something and tell somebody something, but they don't even know what they're trying to tell them.
And there's been times where, I mean, we've shared, and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't understand what I'm talking about? I'm fucking so clear right now. How do you not understand it? But as we've grown, it is like, okay, let me try to rethink it. But we also talked about like all of that we're doing with word blindness and your foundation. I know not to give him little pieces. Like if I need him to give feedback, or I'm like, hey, can I bounce some stuff off of you? Like if I did it each day, it would be like, it just doesn't work that way. Like I needed to give him like a big picture, and then he's like, okay, I get it. But that's also because I know how he works, where if I'm just doing little things, it's like, whatever. It doesn't work as well with him.
And just think of our brains, our brains are a blender and on high speed all the time. So think how many things we do and how many non-ADHD. So telling them all the information, you told them all the information 65 times in your head.
Oh, yeah, totally. Well, it's really, actually, this is really funny. When we first were dating, I think we were on our first like trip together. And I'm not like a female that's like, oh, what are you thinking? Whatever. But I remember we were sitting on the beach and I said, does your brain ever, can you ever sit there with nothing in your, like, think nothing? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, no. was like, that's no, I think I said to him, what? And again, this was not a typical question, but I was like, what are you thinking? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, well, that's not true. I was like, what do you mean you're thinking nothing? And he's like, I'm thinking nothing. And I was like, that's not possible. There's no way. I was like, you're like, look at the bird. Oh, the sand feels nice. Oh, the sun's really warm. Oh, look at that person walking. He goes, no, I do not do that. And he's like, wait, you do that? And I was like, yeah, I'd never not have a thought, but it doesn't have to be like a complex thought. It was a hilarious conversation.
That's a lot to do with men and women right there.
Well, yes, go ahead.
So there's more to that, but yeah, like we're simple. Like go watch a football game and nothing runs through your head. You didn't think about the carpet. You didn't think about how that potato skin is turned this. No. So let's just. There's a big man and women portion of that one.
So I called my brother. So this is like when we were in like our late 20s. Like I called my brother and I was like, I don't know. I don't know that you actually like really know yourself. I don't understand. So I called my brother who he had already known because he was living in David lived with me in the city. And I was like, do you ever sit there and not think anything? And my brother was like, no. And I was like, okay, something's wrong with this guy. He can sit there and not think of anything. He's like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. And I was like, I don't understand either. But Dan is not attention deficit dyslexia. Now, I have to say, my brother probably isn't, but it runs really deep in our family. So he probably's got a little touch of something.
Well, I grew up with all women. So, you have to analyze.
There's all sisters. Right. So he was always like, oh, geez, like everyone's talking, everyone's got something. But that, and again, I'm taking us down this route because of the fact is, yes, we are all so different, but an ADHD dyslexia brain it puts a whole other scenario into it. So like I asked you, does your brain ever shut down? Like just recently, because that is something that I like to ask people because I'm like, I can kind of gauge how, like I can gauge people by that. Like, oh yeah, I have a couple places where things shut down, or God, no, nothing ever shuts down. And you were like, no, I don't have a quiet spot that I can just like not think. And I was like, okay.
And that goes back to why we do this podcast. You're not ADHD. You're not dyslexic. Don't fucking tell me what I need to do.
Right.
You're a principal. You don't have dyslexia. Don't fucking tell me what to do. You're a superintendent. Don't fucking tell me what to do. You have no idea what goes on to this. You can tell me you read every book. You can tell me. I don't give a shit because you haven't lived it. And the family that I spoke to this weekend, they're like, holy shit. In a 20-minute conversation with you, I've learned more than years and years and years of talking to doctors. I mean, yeah, because they lie every single day.
And they lie, but like it could be the.
You want me to go down that rabbit hole? You don't know. You don't know. Now you got is just like women. That makeup, we don't need that makeup. But you're lying because you don't know. Well, dyslexia is supposed to do. You don't know. Because every single person and makeup is different. So if somebody breaks their wrist, when I'm playing hockey, there's a reason why they usually say 4 to 6 weeks. It might be 4, it might be 6.
Right.
Every person's different. So now you want to tell me, without any understanding of the most complex thing in the world, your brain.
Yeah.
And we talked about dyslexics advocating for dyslexics.
And that is what we're doing. All right. Should I go? I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Should I just read them? I mean, and
you just read them. I'm just going to sit back over here so that the listeners can get the 10, because this could be 16 episodes with me.
I know. Well, I mean, me too, because this is what's fascinating though. Wait, did I did regression, right? Okay. So now the next one is rationalization. You got the gist of it. I'm not
That's
saying
good
it
work.
again.
Good work.
Right. Thank you. Justifying a mistake or a problematic feeling with seemingly logical reasons or explanations. I think I do that.
I'll give a quick example. My oldest called me. He's like, I want to switch jobs. I'm like, well, you need to write on a piece of paper pros and cons, because your brain's so powerful. You can make it convince whatever you want. Oh, this is a great job. It's got this.
Yeah.
Because your brain's that powerful. So you need to write it down.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's good. We're going to leave it there. Displacement. Redirecting an emotion. No, wait, hold on. Redirecting an emotional reaction from the rightful recipient to another person altogether. For example, if a manager screams at an employee, the employee doesn't scream back, but the employee may yell at her partner later that night. I think most people do that.
Now you take a look at that. Always comes from somewhere.
Yeah, you think of a kid in a school, right?
Right. The mean girl, right? That we referenced earlier on this, right? It comes from somewhere. And so does that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's even, I think we've talked about that. Like during times like when my kids were little, if I had so much in my brain, I would be short with them. And had nothing to do with them. It was because I was like not in a great space, and then I would take it out on everyone else. But again, being more aware, you know what? I got a lot on my brain, my plate. Let's get that off my plate. So then when the kids come home from school, I'm not grumpy with them. Same with like a partner, right?
Live for the moment. Can't change the past or the future, only now. And it's the hardest thing in the world to do, 100%. So if you're able to, if you can do that, have better understanding where if somebody came at you, okay, you're able to have a better understanding and have a better reaction to it if you're living in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Okay. Reaction formation. I have to read what it means because I don't think that it makes it anything, because now I'm going to read what it is and it's going to be like, really? Those are the words that they use for that definition? I don't get that. But behaving or expressing the opposite of one's true feelings. For instance, a man who feels insecure about his masculinity might act overly aggressive. Like you think of little man syndrome. You were going to say that, weren't you?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That and what, obviously I'm not a woman, so I think that would probably stand in a man's box more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, self-worth. The whole thing. There's a whole, like, especially with, if you think about, how society is like the man needs to be the breadwinner, this and that. We still are in the day where men are staying home and being incredible caretakers, and they still put themselves like, oh my God, I'm not as worthy as someone else that's actually going, there's so many different things to that.
It's, I'll bring it back to, if you love yourself, that's all that matters. Because at the end of the day, Julie down the street or Sarah or Fred or Bob, who gives a fuck what they think? You have to, what's in your four walls, what is right for your four walls is the only thing that matters. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
It works in there.
Yeah. Okay. So then this one, sublimitation. I think that's what it says. I hope I read that right. I think it's a sublimitation. So this one says channeling sexual or unacceptable urges into a productive outlet, such as work or a hobby. Well,
this is the one that this ties into the very first point.
Yeah.
That I don't agree at all.
Right.
Because you're not cleaning out the closets, you're not going through your trauma to get rid of that. So to me, your goal would be to completely get rid of that. number 0.7 or whatever it is on that list.
Because that's right. Because it's into a productive outlet. So like, what is that? Is that like a sexual predator that now is like I don't, and if they're not channeling, so that one I don't really completely understand.
Well, and I'll go back to the point is, all right, they're using that fuel to push me to go and, like the teacher said, you're not going to make it.
Right.
Pushing over there. But you want you at the end of the day want to be able to eliminate all those feelings to be able to grow. Because if you don't go back and you live in anger, I'll use it back to the addiction side of things. There's something called a dry drunk.
Mm-hmm. That's
somebody that's not going back and doing the work. It's 10 times worse than an alcoholic.
Right. So
this one couldn't disagree more. In my mindset, again, I got my degree from School of Hard Knocks, and it's in the East Coast. You'd want to eliminate that one. You have it. Your goal would want to completely eliminate that in those step process.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the next one. This is a really long word. Okay, intellectualization. I think. Can you look at that? Am I cutting half of the word out?
You're going to ask me to look at that? I couldn't read it last time.
Okay, I think it says intellectualization. So. Okay, so it says focusing on the intellectual rather than emotional consequences of a situation. For example, if a roommate unexpectedly moves out, the other person might conduct a detailed financial analysis rather than discussing their hurt feelings. Okay. I get that. So like a lot of, people take the feelings out of it because they don't want to feel the feels. Like, well, you hurt my feelings. Why are you moving out? I'm really sad about this. I mean, that's like relationships.
That's like being sober. I got to play sober golf and have sober sex the rest of my life. Come on.
I know you say that often and I laugh the same way because I just think it's funny.
Our CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, people hate them. Because they're able to take the emotion out of that decision. Now you go to divorces. There's no, it's all around by emotion.
Yeah.
So I understand this one clearly.
Yeah.
And this one ties into, if you can live for the moment, this one doesn't come into play as deeply and fiercely as it would.
Yeah. And also but also like, okay, I'm having these feelings. Let me write them down or do something, even if you don't want to express it to the other person, but getting them out, not stuffing them, not being like, oh, I shouldn't have that feeling. I shouldn't be sad that they want to move out. Yeah. You know what? It's not your fault. I understand you're moving out. I just want to let you know I'm bummed. Like, that's nice. The person probably wants to hear that in relationships, right? That's so important to say that to your spouse. Like, if you're like, I'm having these feelings, I just want you to know it. And half of the time it's like, I don't want you to do anything with it. I just want to let you know this is how I'm feeling.
And that's learning how people learn. So communicating that, is that writing a note? Is that sending an email? Is that whatever? That's okay.
Yeah.
That's communicating.
Yeah.
Is that, blind, braille for blind people, or sign language for deaf, right? That works for them, right? So there's no right or wrong again.
Mm-hmm.
It's learning what that is for you. Those emotions. You got to send an email. That's okay. You're still communicating.
Yeah,
and that other person has to understand that too. Oh, I want this from you. Okay, maybe that's our end goal, but that's at number 10. Start at number 1, and maybe I'm just using it as a reference point.
Yeah.
A letter.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. Okay, we're on the last one. Wait, hold on. Okay.
This
is like so long. It's like probably 15 letters.
Compartmentalizing.
Yeah, no, I think, okay. Compartmentalization. Wow. Oh, thank you. But you got me started.
You made it sound good.
I did. I said it right, but you started it, so I was able to finish. Okay. Because it's a very long one. Okay. Separating components of one's life into different categories to prevent conflicting emotions. That so many people compartmentalize. And sometimes, see, that's when I, though, actually think can be a healthy thing if it is used in a healthy way. Or, I mean, because we've talked about that before. And actually, it's not always healthy because I've said, like, if an IEP and I had to do this or whatever, I've had to go do this. And I'm like, okay, I can't think about it. I got to put it somewhere else, but then deal with it later. So sometimes putting it somewhere else and then being like, okay, now I got to come back to it because it's not the time and place.
I work with a lot of first responders. Love you guys all for what you do. At the academies, they do a fucking awful job. They're like, oh, this is the best job. This is the best job. Let's just say, a fireman, you go to scene, fire, something bad happens. They tell you to bury it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you bury it on top of the closet more and more and more and more and more, right? Compartmentalizing, you're stuffing it.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to stuff it. To me, is through the shift to get your job done. But then you got to talk about. Yeah. That's why you talk, firemen, all first responders, addiction, divorce, suicide is astronomical because you have no idea what they see and smell, what those triggers are. So at the academy, maybe you can say it's the best job, but you got to bury it through a shift and then you got to talk about it. So you're right. You can put it whatever drawer in your head or whatever cabinets or whatever, but you can't leave it there because it never just stays there.
Yeah.
If you don't deal.
Right. If it's stuffed, it's coming out somewhere. Okay. So
again, stuff-a-thon. Like we really got to go with this one.
No, we're going to do a stuff-a-thon. Yeah. I love the stuff-a-thon. I love that. It reminds me of like snuffleupagus and like stuffing and like putting things in the, like there's so many different thoughts.
The big purple guy.
Yeah. There's like so many things that I think about. No, I think snuffleupagus.
Oh, that's Sesame Street.
That's Sesame Street.
I think of what's the purple guy in Sesame Street? Or
McDonald's.
Grimace.
Grimace. Yeah. Okay. But I did say in the beginning that we were then going to say what we think each other does. And I already said to you, you avoid conversations that you don't want to have you don't want to get into. That is a defense mechanism, but you also are very aware that you're doing it. It's also just maybe you don't want to talk about it at the time.
Absolutely. And listeners, I'll teach you the best way. Defense mechanism is you don't want to answer something. You make sure you flip that question back on that person and make sure you ask a personal question because everybody gets all warm and fuzzy when they want to talk about themselves. And that's what they forget about.
My kid is really good at doing that too. Really good at doing that. But I can
just goes poof. That question is now gone into outer space, and then you just keep on moving.
However, unless you have someone that is onto you and that won't let you do that. So, because my kid is also like, Jesus, doesn't work. It does not work for me. He has done it with teachers and he would always say, God, you never let me get away with any of it. And I'm like, because I know what you're fucking doing. I've been doing it my whole life.
You do the same thing.
Oh, right. Totally.
Exactly.
I don't know if I'm doing it as well as you guys do it, but okay. So
it takes one to know one.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. So what would you say my main, as you've gotten to know me, what do you think my main defense mechanism is that I'm either aware of or not aware of?
Obviously you do the same thing. I think all of us, have some of that, you hide behind your unicorniness.
Interesting. I don't know if I agree with that, but all right.
You don't agree with that?
I said, I don't know. I got to think on that.
When we started the podcast, I don't know if I'm listening to this. You're always warm and fuzzy and bubbly and all good, right? Oh, look at me. I'm behind that little pretty face, right? It's what's in there, right? Right. Making them laugh.
Yes.
That all turns into, that group. Now, do I, can I read it? Absolutely. Do I know, you've come so far in this, last year. It's been amazing. So I think your unicornness, with your little Curious George hat on.
Right. So if I don't want to sometimes feel the feels, but I also like to put a positive spin on it because I like that feeling better. But then sometimes, it can happen because I'm like, okay, there it's out there. Woo!
Oh no, what you give off is what you attract.
Yeah,
I talk about that all the time. So that positive, that's what makes you 100%. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. But we have to understand what that is. Again, when I graduated with my degrees, you have to understand that. And can you take glass half, a glass half full, half empty, right? It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to understand that to make it half full.
Right. So yes, I've always put like a positive thing because it just feels right. I can find the positive in it because then I can be like, okay, let's focus and hang on to that because I don't want to go to the dark. Yeah, I get it.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So I will give you that. Okay.
And somebody said to me, actually my daughter's like, Dad, I'm doing this. I'm like, you have to be okay to sit with yourself. Feeling those feelings. Not running to, running this class and running to this and going to this and doing this and doing this. And then, does it suck? Yes, but you have to. And so go back to the point is you have to feel that feeling. And the more you feel that feeling and you understand that feeling, the less that rabbit hole comes into play because now you can turn it from half empty to half full in that glass.
I love that. We're going to leave it at that. All right. And you know what we always say?
I could be here all day.
No, I know. I could do this all day too. This is what I love. We literally could talk all day. Really good. And we would
talk and not talk about the same thing over and over, and then school would run by, and then we talk about something not.
Yes, but I think many people would follow us the whole time. So I'm going to end with what I always end. You guys, you know what to do. Like, rate, review, and share. Because again, you don't know who needs to hear this. You don't know who needs to be aware of defense mechanisms. Maybe their kids going through some stuff, maybe their spouse, friend, whoever. And it's like, oh, wait, you know what? They're doing that. Let me dive in a little bit. And that's what we're doing with word blindness. Brent Sopel Foundation. Bringing this awareness, but it all comes and starts with somewhere. Obviously, ours has started from our dyslexia, and that's where this is coming from. It's not just flipping your B's and D's. We understand that a lot of you think that it's a lot more. I do flip my B's and D's. I don't know them if they're lowercase. I have to do the B and whatever, just like the left and rights. And yes, I am 50, but these are the things that happen. And, it doesn't have to do with your IQ, but you still have a lot of shame and frustration and anger when it comes to these things. And this is what we want to stop and help, kind of alleviate some of that. Yes, things are always going to be tough. We say that. It's not like we're going to be like, hey, we're taking all of it away. That's not what's happening, but bringing the awareness and bringing these conversations are what's going to help.
It's a nice little Monday.
It is. Well, thank you for joining again. Word blindness, dyslexia exposed.